Hello everybody and welcome to the first notebook of 2025, the first day of pre-season testing ahead of the 2025 FIA Formula One World Championship. How have you been? How's your winter been? All right? Yeah? Good? Right, come and join me in the pit lane as we get a taste of what it's going to look like in 2025. The World Constructors Champions McLaren. Look, the first garage in the pit lane, garage number 0 in fact, and here is Oscar Piastri coming in after the first session of the day, and this McLaren looks a very, very tidy package, I've got to say. While we have a look at all the other teams, and I'll talk about them in just a second, McLaren, it's a sensible car, it's an aggressive car, and this looks more, just basically a more aggressive version of last year's car. It looks like they've made progress, and it looks like they are just making what was the best car, certainly in terms of the Constructors' Championship last year, even better. They've been working on slow speed corners, on high speed corners. They've been working on making the car a little quicker in DRS as well, which is something they've focused on. As far as the front of the car, it doesn't actually look dramatically different, but the rear is nicely packaged, and certainly Oscar Piastri, as he's getting out of the car now, he's handing over to Lando Norris, has looked happier enough. So from the front of it, while other teams are doing different things on their design, I think McLaren are looking, oh, that's an interesting sort of heat shield, gold heat shield on the front bulkhead. Never seen that before. Wow, they've got to keep something cool in there. McLaren look like they're making what was the best package, certainly, of course, won the last race in Abu Dhabi towards the end of 2024, made it even better. There is Lewis Hamilton in the yellow helmet. Go and chase after him, Rob, as he goes into his other area of the garage. And followed by Angela Cullen, who is back as his trainer. Hamilton is happy with this car. He's got what he needs so far. He says, we have all the ingredients that we need at Ferrari to become a winning team and challenge for the championship. And there it is. Car number 44, the most successful driver in the history of Formula One, Lewis Hamilton, in the most successful team in Formula One, Ferrari. But it's a completely new car. That suspension is rethought completely. So they've gone from a push rod front suspension to a pull rod front suspension. They felt that they'd hit the ceiling with what they had before, and they've gone down a completely new mechanical setup concept for this car. Will that mean that it takes them a bit of time to get it sorted out? Maybe. In that time, will McLaren be off ahead winning races? Maybe. Or will Ferrari manage to get on top of their new design early enough for them to win from Melbourne? That's certainly what Hamilton and Leclerc are going to be thinking. Now, talking about teams going down the wrong path and then reversing out, that's exactly what's happened at Red Bull Racing. They've abandoned the idea about last year's RB20 that was causing Max Verstappen so many issues with understeer and not having a good balance. They've reversed out of that cul-de-sac, and they've gone down a new path in terms of trying to get the car a bit more predictable. Will that put them down a bit? Will it push them back a bit? Well, yes, but it could lead to, later on, to a better car than they had at the end of last season, a happier Max Verstappen and Liam Lawson, and able to challenge for wins a bit later on. And finally, let's have a quick look at the Mercedes, because it's fourth time lucky on the ground effect rules for Mercedes. Surely they've got it right this time. Didn't get it right in 22 or 2023 or 2024. Is it four-time lucky? But yeah, they've tried to address the reluctance of this car to turn into slow corners and calm down the randomness on are the tyres working in the right temperature window or not, that seemed them winning races some weekends and then being almost at the back of the midfield, or touching the midfield, back of the top 4 the next ones. Penny for Toto Wolff's thoughts at the back of the garage, just so you can see him there. But it's Kimi Antonelli in the car this morning. But meantime, we can hear from his teammate, George Russell.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Are you not cold in your shirt?
I'm not. I mean, I did bring the shorts. I'm just not wearing it. These are rather nice cords.
Yes.
Are they not cords?
They are cords.
They are cords.
Adidas on brand, you know.
Yeah.
But pretty chilly here.
I never knew Adidas did corduroy trousers.
We can get you some
wow,
if you want.
The world is a different place.
It is. It is.
Seriously speaking, though, does the cold conditions have any effect on the data and information you can gather from the car, or tyre wear, or anything like that?
Well, it definitely has an impact, without doubt, and it's very different to any other time we've been here in the past. So, but it's F1's tricky these days. It's like you look at the last 4 races of last year, you had a different team dominate each weekend. So you will always try and learn as much as you can, but probably take the results with a pinch of salt.
And on that note, you never really knew which Mercedes was going to turn up last year.
Not really, no.
Obviously, you could have a great one where you were winning races, by whatever you were winning them by. And then next weekend, it would be like, well, what happened to that nice car I had in Vegas or something like that? What car have we got here now? I mean, not now, but what have we got?
Yeah, I mean,
have they ironed out the inconsistencies?
It's definitely performing well so far this morning. Kimi's doing a great job out there, and that's what we've been working on, making a more consistent car over the course of a season. But the fact is, we didn't truly understand it, even ourselves, why it was so up and down, and I don't think also other teams understood as well. It was only really McLaren who were consistent week in, week out, but they also, in Vegas, they were nowhere, which maybe tells us something. They were the dominant team, and one of the outlier races, they were nowhere and we were flying. But I don't think we're going to really know until we've got a few races under our belt how consistent the car is, race to race. Is it susceptible to temperature changes like we saw last year? And obviously the cold seemed to like us, and it's freezing here at the moment. So we also don't want to judge too much into what we learn in these days. We've got to be thinking, like, if it was 20 degrees hotter, what would the car be doing?
Okay. But, fourth time lucky on these rules.
Classic saying.
Mercedes.
Yeah.
Didn't really work 22,
no.
23 or 24.
No, it's been a bit of a
fourth
tough
time
run.
lucky.
Yeah, fourth time. Yeah. Let's see. Let's see. I mean, we're doing our best. It's going to be a difficult year as well. So many people focusing on 26 already. I mean, I think some teams have already fully stopped development this year, which is crazy to say, but I think it'll be exciting.
Good. You mentioned Kimi Antonelli. What's he like?
He's a good guy.
Yeah,
he's a good guy. He's a good kid. He's quick, and he's going to be keeping on my toes. So it's going to be exciting, sort of new, different dynamic, and it's always good to see like the new kid come in and brings you back the memories of your first test. I remember my first test. The car didn't arrive until 3.5 days into the test in Barcelona, which
that was. I mean, Williams had there was some issues.
Yeah, I mean it went uphill, didn't it? It was a tough first day out. But that was a long time ago now.
So you think Kimi, a rookie, 18 years old, he's going to be giving you a hard time? You really think that?
Yeah, I mean he's going to be quick. There's no doubt about it. I think all of the top drivers, we throw them in the car at 18. I mean obviously Max was already here at 17, and he was doing the job. So I don't see any reason why Kimi wouldn't be.
Okay, interesting stuff. George, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
We're going to go off and see who else we can find.
See you later.
From you.
Cheers.
And keep warming them cords. Very nice. Well, yeah, they're nice and baggy. Well, something that's certainly not baggy in Formula One is the midfield. I was talking about George's trousers. And yours, actually.
Yeah, mine,
because it's going to be as tight as ever. But who will be leading it? Haas, Williams, Aston Martin, or Alpine?
I don't have a crystal ball.
No, I know.
But if you do, then let me know now.
It's going to be tight, isn't it? I mean, maybe Aston's got a bit of a better car than last year. You've certainly got a better car than last year.
We are pleased with, I must say, we are pleased with our winter as a team. Like we had a great end of 2024. Team is on a great dynamic. A lot of good stuff is happening back in Enstone, and I must say I'm confident. But as long as you get your car on the track and you get a feel for what the others have done and how much they managed to improve, then until then it's difficult to really have any prediction. And I'm not the type of guy to get my head wrapped around all the speculation, what you see or hear there and there. Just want to feel the car and see where does it put us.
The speculation in terms of race runs. I mean, I guess by the end of Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we'll have an idea on race runs. But then Melbourne is such a weirdly different track to this. It could change again, and then we've got Shanghai. And then...
I mean, Bahrain in 15 degrees and everybody wearing jackets and stuff. It's definitely going to be different when we get back here in 2 months' time. So it's going to be difficult to really get a read of the entire performance. And as you say, I would not be surprised to see the entire midfield within 2-3 tenths. It cooled well be that on this track in this condition it's one way, and in Australia it's another way. China is going to be a different way. So I think most important, we want to go through our run plans, understand the car, try to really nail it down for the first few races. And as you say, like, personally, deep inside me, I want us to be the best of the midfield. Whether it's going to be achievable straight from Australia, time will tell.
Okay, thank you very much. We're at your garage. We'll let you go.
Yeah.
I like all this a bit of a refresh.
Well, one thing
looks good. The
one
blues
thing
and
that's
the
for
pinks.
sure is the car looks good.
It does look good.
It's really cool.
Very nice. Okay.
Anyway, I'll see you later.
All right, thanks, Pierre. And let's catch up with McLaren, the first garage in the pit lane McLaren.
It's a long walk from there. I think I need to park over there tomorrow.
Hang on, you can't complain. This is what you've been after all these
Getting
years.
some exercise in now.
It's only until you see it that you finally believe, yes, this is what this means.
Yeah.
First motorhome, first
Nice.
garage.
It's nice.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah, and we're enjoying it. It's cold, a little bit colder than I'm used to here, but excited to be back at the track.
What's the concept with the car? Obviously, this car won the last Grand Prix we had in Abu Dhabi in December. Is it just making it better?
faster?
Oh, no, sorry, stupid question.
We have a lot of innovation on the car. We've we have not stood still in the winter, so quite excited to see it all work. So far, so good. Obviously, early days, but no, it's. We didn't just polish the car and say let's race it again in Australia. We've got a lot of work that's gone into this car.
But you haven't, changed front suspension layout, which is what Ferrari done. You haven't gone back out of a cul-de-sac, which is what Red Bull have done. You haven't tried something different that Mercedes have done. It looks like you're kind of on plan compared to last year, while others have got even more innovation or change, if you like.
Yeah, I think we've tried to enhance what we've had, but there's some stuff on there that I don't think has been totally noticed yet. But
On your car?
on our car, which I think will happen in due course as everyone gets their photography out. But no, we obviously ended the year with a strong race car. So did kind of everybody else. I think this field's going to be closer than ever.
Okay, looking forward to it. Just final question. Do you know what changed the FIA's mind over the winter on front wing flexibility? They said it was all right when we ended the season, and now suddenly it's not all right. Who or what changed their mind?
Not quite sure, but we're fine with it. We'll adapt accordingly as everyone else, but not sure what changed their mind because it did seem to be A-OK, and then it wasn't.
Yes. One of the questions, thank you, Zach, one of the questions that will go on for the rest of the season, as I go and look, thank you very much, as I go and look at the interesting new innovations on the McLaren car. But I'll do that in between where we are now and part two. So join us after the break for a roundup of the first day here of Bahrain testing ahead of the 2025 F1 season. Hiya, welcome back to the first notebook of 2025, day one of the first and only pre-season test ahead of the 2025 FIA Formula One World Championship. And I say FIA because we have had some news from the FIA over here, and that is that they've only gone and approved a mandatory two-stop at the Monaco Grand Prix. There is some doubt as to how the World Motorsport Council actually made their vote and possible missing members of the World Motorsport Council, but that's a story for another day. But it looks like we're going to have a mandatory, for the first time since the Qatar Grand Prix a couple of years ago, a mandatory race, or rather a race where you've got to make two stops. You've got to change tyre compounds at least once. And on the point of it, on the face of it, just to spice up the show. Gimmick or a necessary thing to make the Monaco Grand Prix a bit more interesting? You decide. Anyway, that's why story number one of the day. Story number two is all about McLaren. And they got there in the end after we had the, as Craig Slater just said if you were watching the Roundup show, lights out because the fuse, and away the fuse blows. But it was an hour lost to a power cut that was a kind of regional power cut. So it wasn't that somebody plugged something in on the car, which drained the power and made the lights go off. It was the Sakhir region around here suffered a sort of national grid failure. Well, national grid, the Bahraini version of a grid failure. So lots of people around here suffered a power cut. And then it affected everybody. I mean, of course, the teams have UPSs, uninterrupted power supply systems, to stop their sort of critical infrastructure from going over. But when the floodlights are affected and you can't run, even though it was still during the daytime more or less, obviously you can't run, and a lot of the FIA and Formula One equipment couldn't run either. So not surprising that we had to have a red flag and stop. But what that meant was that Lando Norris, who was in the afternoon, he got his act together. He lost time, but then of course we added it with an hour at the end. And as I record this, almost 9 p.m. Bahrain time. But once they found a good setup, then Lando went out on the C3 tyre. In fact, all of the top fastest times today were set on the C3 compound, despite Max Verstappen going well on the harder tyre, the C2, earlier on. But Lando went out and did the quickest lap time, very good lap time of a low 1:30, 52 laps and P1 for Lando Norris, 66 laps earlier in the day and P17 for Oscar Piastri. Good day for Oscar, not so smooth early on as I said for Lando. Oscar did 66 laps. And Zach, one of the things that Zach Brown was talking about a bit earlier, as look quite closely and you'll see the nice bits, revolutionary bits on the McLaren, is the rear wing, particularly the rear wing end plates. When it's on track later in the week, have a look at it, because the rear wing end plates are absolutely beautiful. Not only do they sort of come down, but they sort of swirl, and you can sort of see how the air might work around them. So rear wing end plates, number one thing. There is Lando, who ended up number one today, just doing some content for the McLaren socials. He got one of those mini mics with him. Oh no, they've actually put it on his lapel. But yeah, oh, look at that, a thumbs up from Lando towards the end, and who wouldn't give a thumbs up after doing 52 laps and ending up P1. A little bit late out, got the plan completed and got the setup sorted, and then P1 on the C3 tyre, 0.4 of a second at the time ahead of the next person, who was Max Verstappen at the time, but he ended up P3. It was George Russell actually who ended up P2 in the end. Right, let's move to the next team, which in the paddock is Red Bull, but in the pit lane is Ferrari. But we will do Red Bull just because they are here. And Liam Lawson, 58 laps, and I've written P58, which is clearly not right. I'll get you Liam Lawson's finishing position in a second. But Max Verstappen, 74 laps and P3. So Liam Lawson was P8. In the end, not P58. We haven't got that many drivers, not yet anyway. But yeah, okay morning for Liam. Got a bit keen on the exit of one of the corners and had a spin, but recovered. And then everyone sort of sharpened up when Max Verstappen came into the garage. Everyone was watching. Helmut Marko, Christian Horner, GP Lambiase, of course, and Liam Lawson himself. It's kind of, oh, Max in, Max is here. Let's see what he's got to say about the car. And did a good lap on the C2, as I say, slightly harder tyre. Then went one step softer to do his lap, which was good enough for P3 in the end, and 74 laps. It's a better car. How good is it compared to the McLaren? Not as good at the moment. But that's not to say that once, as I said earlier in the show, once they get to learn about it, that doesn't mean that it can't get better later on. Christian Horner did have some things to say about the boos that he received in the O2 Arena at F1 75. He said he did one of his football analogies where he said it's like that you're debuting your away strip in an away fixture in a stadium. We've been the protagonists against some other drivers who happen to be English, and so no surprise, but he said it was a shame that Max got the reception he did. Disappointing, given that he's a four-time world champion. But as we said on the podcast, and I think as I've said before, I didn't really hear, I wasn't aware of Max being booed. I didn't think that he was particularly, but Christian said he was. Anyway, let's move on. It's Ferrari next, because they've just shaken up the order in the paddock, and a very solid day for them as they learn their pretty revolutionary car for them as well. Completely different mechanical suspension setup layout. 70 laps for Lewis Hamilton, P13. Charles Leclerc, 71 laps for him, and P4. So I think the time is more representative for Leclerc's. Lots of laps for Lewis Hamilton. He was in and out of the car all morning, went a bit wide a few times, but that's to be expected as he pushes the limits. And Charles Leclerc, fastest in the afternoon, initially on the C3, but then got the time beaten by Max Verstappen, George Russell, and Lando Norris. But they seem happy enough, do Ferrari. Right, Mercedes. And you heard from George Russell earlier on. Thought that was interesting how he's expecting Kimi Antonelli to be some tough opposition to him, and certainly that's what it looked like earlier on. I know this is difficult for you, Rob, because Mercedes are all the way down there. Don't worry about it. Just doing some nice shots of some trees before we get onto Aston Martin. But a strong day of first day of testing for the rookie Kimi Antonelli. Good pace on the long and the short runs, and we think he's going to be good. He looked good today. Got George Russell's attention, certainly. George Russell said it's the best Mercedes I've ever driven around Bahrain, which is good because the others haven't been all that much cop. But yeah, he's optimistic, and they have a pretty revolutionary, or very different for them, front suspension, which I will tell you about in the live coverage tomorrow, because it is quite a different layout as they seek to cure their tyre heat-up issues and indeed their performances in slow speed corners. Improve their car's performance in slow speed corners. George Russell, 70 laps, P2, also on the C3 compound tyre, what would effectively be a medium. Kimi Antonelli, 78 laps and P7. Right, back to Aston Martin. Sorry to do this to you, Rob. And this is a big story for me. Aston Martin have... Hey, chopper! Nice. Aston Martin have a good car again. All right, it might not be McLaren or Mercedes or Ferrari or even, you know, Red Bull beating, but it's a good car, and it's enough for Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll to do business. And I'm really pleased about this, because no one really wants... Oh, look, there's me on the telly, Rob. That's weird. That's my bit with Esteban Ocon. Why have they got my... Oh, I guess they've got Sky F1 on there. Anyway, don't look at me on the telly. That's weird. Right. That's odd. Sorry. Sorry, I got distracted by the Alpine piece on the TV. But Aston Martin, Fernando Alonso, 46 laps, P15. Lance Stroll, 42 laps, P16. And it's got a good front end, which it didn't really last year. They tried a few new front wing elements and nose cones and other aero bits, and they were happy. Alonso's happy. Lance, I think, is happy, but I haven't spoken to him, so I can't say for sure. And they have a new engineering setup in terms of a different engineer for Lance Stroll. It's Gary Gannon, who's got a very good way with him, who I think will work very well with Lance Stroll. It's Stroll's third engineer in maybe 3 years or 4 years, but hopefully they can have a good sort of chemistry together and they can work well together, because Gary Gannon last worked particularly well with Nico Hülkenberg and Kevin Magnussen when they were all at Haas. So I thought that was quite interesting. Bad luck for Lance as he lost time, only 42 laps, P16. Fernando Alonso, 46 laps, P15. Don't pay too much attention to the times, because that is basically a good car, which is great. Right, Alpine, Jack Doohan, 68 laps and P14. Pierre Gasly, 72 laps and P6. Continue where they left off towards the last race of the year. Alpine confirm that they haven't done an entirely new tub monocoque survival cell, because they pushed the button on a new lighter weight one at the end of last year. And there's no point doing another one, because it would end up pretty much the same as the one they've already got. So to save money and spend it elsewhere under a cost cap, they've carried over the 2024 tub. But they put, obviously, lots of new bits, front wings, bodyworks, floor, everything all around it. Same for Williams, by the way. So Alpine and Williams, two teams who are using the tubs from last year. But of course they've made new ones of them, but the design and all the pickup points for the wishbones and everything like that, and the gearbox and the engine, and then by extension the gearbox, are the same as last year, so why not use last year's one? But yeah, otherwise, yeah, Pierre Gasly pretty happy, as you heard earlier, and Jack Doohan saying that he's pretty happy with the car as well. Just got a couple of minutes left, so we'll do Haas, who are next after the Pirelli garage. Oliver Behrman, 72 laps and P20, last of all. Esteban Ocon, 88 laps and P19. So last and second last. Don't worry, Haas fans, Ocon and Behrman fans. Haas are just doing what Haas do in testing, which is just be slow and sort out the tyres. I don't think the car's that slow. They're just doing Haas testing things, which is they'll sort of turn up to Australia and then surprise us by being pretty much where they were last year, which is sort of knocking on the door of the points. So it's okay, it looks steady, but good first day for Ollie Behrman. Esteban Ocon a bit late getting out for the afternoon session, but yeah, just taking their time, not chasing lap times, which is good because they're not showing any lap times at all, and getting themselves into a good place for the first race. Racing Bulls, or RB, whatever they're called nowadays. Yuki Tsunoda, 78 laps, P10, and Isaac Hadjar, a few laps fewer, but P11. Yuki, solid morning. The car looks okay, nothing revolutionary on the car. Lauren McKeith says that Yuki is still trying to get the Red Bull Racing drive, because that's what he wants, and they are helping him do that. He will do it. McKeith said if he just gets quicker and quicker, then that will mean that there's no reason why he can't challenge Lawson for next year's Red Bull Racing drive. Okay, but we'll see how that goes. Hadjar lost track time with a power cut, of course, but then had a bit of a spin, but continued. Bit of a tough day for Isaac Hadjar, the young Frenchman in the RB, or the Racing Bulls. Hopefully he can have a better test towards the end of the week. Williams, another one who is using the basic tub from last year, but with all the new bits upgraded and new bits around it. Here is family Sainz and friends. Carlos Sainz settling in very well with Alex Albon. Alex 63 laps, P9 in the morning. Sainz 68 laps and P5 in the afternoon. Alex focused, well, while the team we think are focusing on 2026, but with this basically upgraded version of last year's chassis, it's okay so far. Solid, maybe not spectacular, but it does look like with those two drivers, they have got some basic decent speed in the car. How quick it's going to be remains to be seen. And that is also the case for Sauber, because I've got to say, Nico Hülkenberg, when he got out of the car after the morning session, scratching his head, rubbing his chin, thinking, oh, what is this car that I've gone to? It's not very good, is it? That's only what it looked like. Hopefully, it wasn't the case at all. And actually, he's going to be quite good this year. But on the face of it, so far, it doesn't look like this Sauber is too much of an improvement that's going to get them out of where they currently are, which is at the back of the paddock, where we will leave you for the time being. So lots to say today, lots to say tomorrow, and so join us for testing that starts at 7 in the morning. Craig's testing wrap that's at 8 p.m. if you didn't manage to watch all 8 hours of testing, or 9 hours as we had today. And then tomorrow's notebook, same time, 8:30 p.m. here from Bahrain. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Sky Sports F1.